Hello my friends, this is Post-Production Pi with SLRlounge.com, and in this tutorial we have another Lightroom edit. This time we're going to be doing a user edit. So we have one of our users in our forum, Matt, actually submitted one of his raw files. We're going to do a raw edit with his file. Now, for those of you that don't know, we have relaunched the SR Lounge forums. We took it down for a bit just because it wasn't the way we wanted. We have redesigned it, we have relaunched it. So if you go to SR Lounge and go to the forum option here, you guys can join. We have a lot of cool stuff. We have places to get constructive criticism on your photos, and it's a nice positive community, guys. So we're not bashing each other, we're helping uplift and educate. So join up, guys, and we may even use your images for Lightroom raw edits like this one. So Matt has this HDR headshot which he posted. This is the image that he posted. And I love that. I mean, there's a lot of things that I love about this image, and I love the fact that Matt is trying new things. Applying HDR effects to this portrait is something that's relatively new. It's actually something that is done a lot in street photography. Now, I mentioned to Matt that I love this image. I think the expression, the exposure, the lighting, it's all awesome. But it's not necessarily the effect that I would apply to this image, just because we have a very soft, beautiful female subject, and the HDR effect kind of tends to be more of a grunge effect. Now, I love using the HDR effect on portraits where we're kind of dealing with, more, I want to say like more street photography, where basically people have a lot of character in their faces, they have a lot of lines, wrinkles, and you're really kind of bringing out, creating that grunge look. So I had Matt submit this file, and we're going to go through and do a raw edit of the file. So let's go through and talk about how it was shot real quick. This was shot on a 5D Mark II with a 50mm. It's the Nifty 50, the 1.8. At 2.8, and it was shot at 1/120th of a second, and he used a beauty dish as his key light. So as his main light, he's got his beauty dish and a bare bulb flash for the background. It was also, he mentions, in a small room. All right, now let's jump into Lightroom and let's pull up the file. So here we have the original file right in Lightroom, and it's a great shot. Matt did a really good job with this, and it kind of reminds me, it's very Peter Hurley-esque, this kind of look and this expression and the crop and the lighting and everything. So great job on this shot. What I'm going to do first is we're going to apply the standard color soft portrait preset, and you're going to see that it automatically is going to take this image and kind of, it just refines it a bit. So it takes us a big step in the direction we want to go. And let's go over what this preset actually does for those that don't have the Lightroom 4 preset system. So essentially what we're doing over here in our basic tones is we're dropping our highlights, boosting our shadows, dropping our whites and our blacks a titch. Now overall what this effect does is it basically balances out highlight tones and shadows. So it's pulling out and flattening out the highlights for portraits. So on portraits, we kind of want to balance it out so we don't have as many hot spots on the face. We're also dropping clarity a bit, and a new update in the 1.2 update that will be coming out soon is we're dropping vibrance to about -10. We're doing this because with portrait shots like this, whenever vibrance is even at 0 or boosted, we kind of create these funky tonal ranges or these tonal colors in the shadow areas of the skin. So we want to eliminate that by just pulling the vibrance down a titch. It's not enough to kind of desaturate the image, it's just enough to pull down some of those kind of brighter colors in the shadowy areas. Alright, so we did that. It also has our standard sharpening and noise reduction applied. Noise reduction again is applied on a portrait image just to smooth out the detail in the pores of the skin. So it's just a little bit of noise reduction that doesn't kill the overall detail, it just provides a tiny bit of softening in the skin area. Alright, so we have that. Now let's go and make some adjustments. So this takes us a big step in the right direction. Now we just need to refine a titch. So I'm going to pull down my exposure just a bit. I'm going to also drop my temperature a little bit. So let's go to about 4800, maybe 4850. This is one of those decisions you guys have to make on your own, kind of where you like the warmth of it. I like it a titch on the cooler side. I'm going to add a tiny bit of pinks to it just to bring back just a little bit of magenta so it's not so yellow. All right, I think it looks great right there. And now we're going to make modifications. Now, from here, we could go and drop the clarity significantly, but what happens is if we drop the clarity over the entire image, it's going to basically, well, it's going to soften everything. And we don't want to soften everything. I just want a little bit of extra skin softening. And so from here, let's refer to and go basically to our brushes. So we're going to be using the brush system from the Lightroom 4 preset system. So if you guys don't know what these do, or if you don't have the system itself, then once we select an item, just pause it and then you can dial in your settings and continue. All right, so what we're doing first is we're going to select the skin softener and we're going to drop it all over the skin. And a good idea at this point is to hit O so that you turn on your overlay and you can see exactly what you're painting in. All right, so what I like to do is paint it over everything and then we're going to basically remove it from the areas that we don't want affected. This is a sloppy painting job. All right, that's all right though. I'm going to hold Alt or Option on a Mac, and then we're just going to drag it off the hair. Just pull it off so we don't reduce detail over the hair. Making sure that I leave, whoops, drag and drop the film strip instead. All right, there we go. Once again, we want to make sure that the skin is covered, but the hair is not. So just pull it up and over, and that's great. Now I'm going to zoom in. We're going to uncover our eyes. So just holding Alt again, Option on the Mac, we're just uncovering the eyes. We don't want to remove any detail from eyes, from eyebrows. It looks kind of weird when you soften, like, you know, facial hair, like eyebrows and stuff like that. So just an FYI, unless you got these big bushy things, like I got these big bushy eyebrows on myself, those things could do a little bit of softening because they're ginormous. You know, I once had my art teacher. He was teaching us how to basically paint faces, and he was like, look at everybody's eyebrows. Everybody's got these, you know, different eyebrows. Each person is unique. And he's like, look at Jennifer's over there. Look at how thin and beautiful those eyebrows are. And look at, you know, Samantha's. And then he turns to me and he's like, whoa, Pie Man, check out those things. Those things are crazy, dude. And like right in front of the class. He used a couple other expletives. He was a very interesting art teacher. But yeah, it was a nice moment for me in the awkward years. He made it more awkward. I'm removing it from the lips. Again, we don't want to soften the lips. Just going to paint it over. All right. My computer's going a little bit slower than usual just because we're recording also, and because we're doing brush effects. So bear with me. All right, just refining a little bit to make sure we're not covering any areas. That's great right there. The clarity adjustment should be good. I'm going to hit O just to check it out. And what I might do is also just apply it to the shoulder over here too. It's already softened over here, so we don't really need it. But I like to make it uniform. So basically, we're applying this effect over all the skin, and not just you know, one little tiny area of it. Or one major area, but not the shoulder. All right, let's look at the mask. It's looking good. Ooh, that's kind of a cool effect itself. All right, look, got a little circus going on. All right, I'm going to hit O. We're going to be done with that brush. So I'm just going to click on the brush. We're going to go and select. One thing you want to make sure, guys, is you either hit New or you turn off and turn back on your brush. You can do either one. But if you just have this selected and you choose another effect, it's automatically just going to apply that effect to the brush you have selected. So just hit New. It's the quickest and easiest way. We're going to go down to the line diminisher. So we've ordered all this in the preset, in the brush preset system, so that basically it's in the order that you want to retouch. So from skin to lines to eyes to irises, lips, it's basically dealing from the largest areas down to the smallest areas. So we're going to select our line diminisher. We're going to go over these lines on the forehead, and it's just going to serve to diminish some of these lines just a bit. All right, we're going through pretty quickly because this is a very subtle effect, and so it doesn't need to be absolutely flawless. You'll see that it's a very forgiving effect. All right, we're going to drag it over the bottom of the eyes just to kind of clean up this area right here. And one thing I want to make sure you guys always do when we're dealing with eyes. Now, of course, we could serve to take this image into Photoshop and do a lot with it. But one thing you never want to do in Photoshop is completely remove the bags underneath an eye. I mean, unless you're doing like high-end fashion retouch. This is kind of a no-no because it makes people look completely different. In fact, people might look at it and say they look kind of alienish because they basically have no lines underneath the eyes, and it's one of those features that is a very distinguishing feature. So we want to always diminish and not remove. Okay. Again, with the smile lines, I'm just going to diminish them a little bit. That looks pretty good right there. One thing I'm also going to do is diminish right underneath the lips, and the reason for that is because she has a little bit of kind of hair underneath the lips, and I want to just kind of make that a little bit softer. Okay, so just underneath the lips, we're going to do a little bit of diminishing. And that looks great right there. Now we need to do some additional retouch. And one thing I should have done a second ago is actually do our spot removal first. Now, a good key to when you guys are doing fashion portraits, and obviously if you're not dealing with big budgets, this isn't really an option, but the better the makeup artist, the better, you know, the more time you're going to save when it comes to retouch. A makeup artist can get rid of almost virtually anything. At least a good makeup artist can. So a lot of these areas, like where we have a little bit of this mascara kind of in the corners of the eyes, that is pretty much going to have to be a Photoshop retouch. And those things are things that, you know, great makeup artists will avoid. So where you can, you know, make sure you're kind of building your team. As you're going through, you're building your studio, build up a good team of people that you can rely on that do a really good job, because it's just going to end up saving you time later on. So what we're going to do now is I'm just going to have the spot removal brush thing selected, and we're going to go through and just remove some of these bigger kind of blemishes and areas like that. Now again, this is something that we'd want to do typically in Photoshop. If I was going to be taking this image into Photoshop, or if I was delivering it, say if we were going to submit this to a magazine, I would definitely Photoshop this versus Lightroom. But you know, we can do a lot of stuff in Lightroom and it's going to look really great. And for the majority of clients, for the majority of shoots that aren't like huge production shoots, Lightroom is sufficient. Granted, for something like this, Photoshop is actually probably quicker, but that's all right. So again, I'm just kind of removing some of these more noticeable and kind of distracting blemishes on the skin. If there's blemishes or if there's kind of spots on the skin that are really distinctive, I'm going to leave those because those are distinctive features. But notice I'm just adjusting the brush size to kind of best fit the area that we're fixing, and we're just removing the sample area to an area that has basically a really close color tone. So I want to make sure we sample over areas that are matching in color. Otherwise, we're going to have funky brush effects. And the brush tool always likes to sample from areas like if you highlight a sample of, like, say, a blemish, the brush will look for an area nearby with something similar. And so if there's another blemish nearby, it's actually going to go to that because it recognizes basically the sample area is kind of similar to this other pattern. And so oftentimes you're actually having to move around the sample area because it's basically sampling from another bad area. So just be aware of that. And we're going to do we're going to make sure that we'll do a little test at the end just to make sure that we did this correctly. But for now, I'm just going to go through. You can see how it keeps sampling from areas that have other blemishes. This is one area where I'm still waiting for Adobe to really update the or optimize Lightroom 4, because Lightroom 4 is significantly slower in the area of brushes and retouch when compared to like Lightroom 3. Part of it's because you have a lot more kind of effects and controls at your hand. Like the new brushes allow for a lot more control and kind of artistic effects, but at the same time it goes a lot slower. All right, we're almost there. This is a fairly big one. We're going to remove that one, and this one right here on the cheek. See, this one's sampled from the wrong area. We don't want to replicate lines. That's just not going to look right. Let's pull from right here. I'm going to do one more sample here, and then what we're going to do is we're going to zoom out. We're going to turn off our spot removal tool, and we're just going to check to make sure everything looks right. The rest of these are pretty okay. They're not distracting. They're not, actually this one I might want to, this is a pretty good freckle. Maybe remove that one. Okay, so let's zoom out, let's check it out. It looks okay for the most part. If we wanted to, we could zoom in and really kind of give it a once over kind of closely. Like, see, this area right here is still a little bit problematic, but we're going to leave it just because we could retouch it a little bit. Actually, you know what? I'm feeling you guys are going to want to retouch that a bit. What I'm going to do is click on this, and I'm just going to drag to increase the size of this spot removal tool. So you can just click. You don't have to create a new spot removal. You can just drag and click on the edge, and it'll update or increase the size. So I'm just going to increase the size a bit more, just to cover up a little bit more of that area. Just want to make sure that we don't end up going over the smile line, because that'll look even more strange. And I'm going to add another one just in this little tiny area right here. Actually, let's see. Can't do it. Let's put it right here. Let's see if we can get this to work. I'm going to drag over this smile line up here and see if we can kind of replicate the smile line down. There you go. Pretty good. Again, I'd probably do that in Photoshop because I'm not completely happy with it. We'll just leave it the way it was. Just increase the size of that a titch. All right, now there's one distracting one over here. I'm just going to remove this. This looks like it's over an area that we've already dealt with, so we're just going to increase the size a bit. And this looks like we need to drag it over a bit. One tool, I'll show you guys real quick what I'm talking about exactly. Is this sampling or is that? Okay, there we go. Let's check that out. A little better. All right, one tool, you'll notice that you can't, when you have an area that already has a effect over it, like this little spot right here, like say I want to put another spot removal right in that spot, but I can't because there's already a thing there. So just basically when you hover over it, it selects the previous one. One little trick that you can do is click and create a new spot removal area, and then just grab your removal, like grab the area that's going to be sampling to, not from, but to, and put it in the place that you want it to be. Now you can put that basically anywhere you want versus before where it basically limits you and won't let you put it in that area where there's already an existing spot removal. All right, trying to move it up a little bit. There we go. And then I'm just going to sample from this area right here so we get a little bit of that line so we don't kill it. Actually, you know what? Let's go over more. And then we're going to reduce the opacity of this one. So it just kind of diminishes that area and it doesn't fully remove it. There we go. That should work. Okay, there we go. Much better. All right. So that's pretty good. We have one little spot. You can spend hours on this, guys. So I'm going to do this last one and we're going to call it good right there. Okay. We're done with our spot removal. Let's go on to the next area. So let's go click over here into our, we're going to click our brushes. There we go. Now let's select our next option, which is going to be to eye brighten. We don't need to do too much of this. And this is one of those areas, again, you want to be very, very careful with, not to go overboard. The interesting thing is that with a lot of stuff that you see in magazines, they actually do go overboard a lot. And they kind of, they make it almost stylistic where they have these eyes that just like explode off the page and they look like glowing little alien eyes and stuff. But we're not going for that look. We want to go for a very natural kind of nice headshot look with this. So I'm going to apply it. I'm going to pull down the exposure by 1/10 of a stop. We're going to zoom out. It looks okay. Again, check it from the little navigator view over here. If it looks like the eyes pop from this view, then you've probably gone too far. If it looks okay in this view, then you probably are okay. So we're okay right there. Now we're going to go down to our next option. So we can go to the iris enhancer. And again, she has really bold irises already. This is shot really well. Matt did a really good job with the lighting on this, and that beauty dish is really making the irises pop already. So we want to keep this more on the subtle side. So again, I'm going to kind of apply it. Notice what I'm doing with the, whenever we're doing eye effects, I'm applying it over the entire area of the eye that I want to use, and then we're reducing it or removing it over the shadows. Because I want to follow the natural shadows and where the natural light is falling over the eye, and it falls differently over each eye. So we always adjust for these shadows once we have applied the effect. Okay, I'm going to pull down the exposure just a bit, and we're going to pull down the contrast a bit, and just make it a little bit more subtle of an effect. Okay, you guys can also just diminish the overall effect of it, like the opacity basically, or the flow. All right, let's go down to our next option, which is going to be our lip enhancer. So let's drop down to our lips. We do a little enhancement here. This is kind of like the gloss over the gloss. It's like post-production gloss. We can apply another layer of beauty. Careful if there's if there's certain things on the lips that you don't want to enhance, like if they have cracked lips or something like that. Those are things you're gonna have to take into Photoshop, before you deliver it. So her lips are pretty okay, but I do see a couple things here that could be Photoshopped. We won't worry about it for now. All right, I'm gonna pull down the exposure just one more click. All right. Now let's check out what else we have. Let's see if we have anything else we want to fix. We don't have teeth showing up in this shot. We don't have really anything else. The catch lights are already great, so that's fine. What I am going to do is do a little hair and, well, we're not going to do any lash retouch, but we're going to do a little hair. I want the hair just to pop a bit more. So I'm selecting the hair enhancer and we're just going to drag it over the hair. It's going to darken, kind of pull out some of the detail a little bit, just make it pop a little bit better. All right, getting close. And once again, we're going to check out our mask and we'll refine it as needed. But always with my mask, I like to paint over the larger areas without really, worrying about the smaller areas, and then remove from the smaller areas as needed. Let's hit O, check out the mask. Looks good. I mean, it's over this white background a little bit. If this was some other color background, if it wasn't just white, I'd probably want to remove it. But since it's white, it's really not going to make a big difference. It's not going to be noticeable. Only thing you want to be careful of is you don't see any fringing. Like if you have white and you're doing a lot of clarity boosting, you might get a little bit of fringing, and that's what you want to look out for. Okay, this is pretty much done. We're just going to do a little bit of background cleanup. I'm going to go and select my Dodge Whiten, and what we're going to do is just kind of blow out the entire left and right areas of this image so that we don't have anything kind of distracting us from our subject. So we're moving that white area on the right side. We're going to do the same thing here on the left side, and it kind of just has this nice effect to make sure that everything, when this prints, basically it's going to be pure white and not kind of a gray tone. So whoops, wrong button. That is not what I intended to do, obviously. I'm going to hit undo. Let's hit undo, remove that. There we go. Okay, I'm going to hold Alt Option on a Mac. We're just going to remove it off the hair. Just make sure that we're not kind of brightening up these areas of the hair and making it blow out. We'll go over the skin a little bit too. All right, and we're basically done. So here is our final portrait. This is also a great candidate for a black and white image. So what I'd recommend is hit Control apostrophe or Command apostrophe on a Mac, create a virtual copy, and then hit V. And now you have your nice, lovely black and white once this converts it. And then I always like to kind of brighten up my black and whites too, just a bit. So it looks really nice and clean. All right, so there is our final images. Let's check out the before image so we can see. Here is the before version of the image. I'm just getting there by hitting the backslash key. All right, here's the after. So before and after. These little marks on the shoulder, if you don't like them, they're also something that's very easy and quick to remove as well. So you can do that. And since we created the virtual copy already and we didn't apply those, I'm going to show you guys a quick trick. So I'm going to say remove these off of the shoulders, off the neck, and right here as well. Okay, now that we have those applied, oh, what we got to do is actually turn up the opacity. I forgot that I left the opacity at negative 30, or 30. We're going to turn up to 100. That's why they weren't disappearing. You can go 100. All right, 100, and finally 100. Good. Okay, so what we do if we want to sync just that, we just select the second image. We hit sync or Control Shift S, Command Shift S on a Mac. We're going to hit check none, and we're going to select only spot removal and just hit synchronize. Now again, this is one of those things that you want to be careful that you don't apply this spot removal syncing over images that are different, because then you'll have funky effects and stuff like that. You'll be adding a lot of unwanted spots. All right, so I'm going to hit F to jump out of this. Let's just select this image. So matte, basically, here's what we had with Matt's image, and it's, again, a beautiful shot. It's just, it brings out a little bit of that grunge. Here's where we end up with the final effect. This is kind of how we would produce it, just to really have that kind of nice, fashioned, like super kind of clean portrait look. All right, guys, hope you all enjoyed this tutorial, and we'll see you with the next Lightroom edit.